You're pretentious too. Now I realize that that comment is a little bit silly, but I did want you to click on the video. At the same time, I do think that it gets at something that's important when it comes to saying that something's pretentious, at least when it comes to works of art, which is, I think it comes across as an insult and suggests that the speaker tends to know better. Hey creative cats, if you're interested in a similar topic, I covered a similar video in the past on authenticity and artifice, and if you're interested in that video, click the link right here. Otherwise, let's move on up. So a few years ago, Joe Rogan had a podcast episode where he talks about visiting the LA County Museum of Art. He talks about seeing different sculptures and pieces of work there. He talks about seeing Michael Heizer's boulder sculpture called Levitated Mass. He calls it and work like it dog shit. But he also expresses concern about the jazz music that's played. He says it's like super pretentious meets uber pretentious and they collide in a fucking shitstorm of hipsters. While Joe Rogan's comments are a little bit extreme, he's not the only person to hold this opinion. But I was curious what other creators thought about this. So I asked on social media, and one user said, it wasn't pretentious, it was expensive public art. They said, I think a lot of it has to do with concept and artist intention. I don't think being overly grand, expensive, or decadent is enough to be considered pretentious. It has to be snarky as well. So yes, an element of arrogance. Damien Hirst's skull comes to mind. I think most public works automatically enter the area of arrogance because they are based off being unwilling or surprised encounter. But I want to get at why this one little word, pretension, is sometimes used as an entire encompassing art criticism. So let's look at the common ways that people use this term. Maybe you've heard people use the term pretentious to describe something that is self-important, uneducated, phony, meaningless, lazy. Maybe they've been accused of being obnoxious, trying to appear smart, or that they haven't worked hard enough, or that they claim to be better than their actual skill level. It can be too obvious, it can be too confusing. But what are people actually trying to get at when they use this one small word, pretentious, to cram all of these meanings? Oxford Dictionary defines the word pretension as an adjective where something tries to appear more important, intelligent, etc. in order to impress other people, trying to be something that you are not in order to impress. And with a more casual tone, Urban Dictionary says pretentiousness is behaving in an intention-seeking manner via presenting oneself on the surface as being more intelligent, provocative, important, avant-garde, humorous, or significant, yet harboring ulterior motives. Now, I'm really interested in the word impress in these definitions. Not too long ago, a video by The Art Assignment had a similar topic, and they covered this, where Sarah Green says that she basically agrees with the definition of pretension and says it's pretty much the step that you have to take to be willing to create anything, to be able to risk putting yourself in the world and receive criticism. But I also think that it's pretty common to want to be viewed in positive regard. Most people have a positive need to have their contributions recognized. But also worth considering when it comes to pretension is reactions. It's very likely that even though the artwork made you angry or irritated or you didn't like it, it's possible that that's the reaction that the artist wanted. So whether it's to disorient or confuse or irritate, the work is still doing something. Which brings me to the other idea of impressing that I'd like to consider as impressing upon. I think a lot of creators have a desire to get across what they feel is important. So whether it's a personal cause or a political cause, a lot of creators use their creativity as a means to express the things that they care about and be invested in them. Aesthetics, after all, is an entire set of principles dedicated to getting across a message effectively. An article in The Guardian talks about this, and Dan Fox says that pretension is always someone else's crime. He goes on to say, the pretentious flaws of others affirm your own intellectual or aesthetic expertise. At the same time, like that user said, something that's snarky or arrogant can trivialize an entire topic. But like Dan Fox, what strikes me is that these comments always come, or at least seem to come, from a position of authority. But who gets to decide what phoniness is, what meaning is, and when it's appropriate? How can you decide what someone's intention is when you have artists like Picasso, who was known for his disorienting and cubist paintings, but was also extremely skilled at painting realistically? I do think it's fair criticism to say this piece of art is overly simplistic for me, or that the way that this creator approached this piece of work and the techniques that they used are too distracting for me personally. I think those are fair and completely adequate criticisms. And I want to be clear that I do think that arrogance can be taken a little too far. It can be ignorant of others and not consider community. And to that, some people might say, so what? So what someone is pretentious? What if someone is totally in it for themselves and wants to maybe make money or develop a career off the skills that they have? Is there anything wrong with that? I'll leave that for you to decide, but I'm also really curious of what this means for creators. Does this mean that creators have to think about their intentions before they create something? I think that that's for you to decide, but for me personally, I would just do away with the word pretentious altogether because I don't find it very descriptive or very helpful. I find it rather dismissive without being critical or very insightful. What I would suggest is, instead of using the word pretentious, say what you actually mean. So if you think that something comes across as being phony, what do the feelings of phoniness evoke in you? Or if you mean to say that something comes across as being more important than it actually is, say that. At the same time, if you find yourself making those comments, don't be surprised if someone accuses you of the same thing. That's why I think that you're pretentious too. But as always, what matters is, what do you think? Is art pretentious? Share in the comments below and join the conversation. My name's Sarah, and if you'd like to keep participating in these creative conversations, consider subscribing. And until next time, keep making stuff that matters.